Hello everyone, welcome to another podcast. It's me, Ben Lister, here again, of course, and hello and welcome to episode 11 of the Radio Legends podcast. As you know, by now, we look at the history of radio and chat with a radio great each episode about their career and their life in the radio industry and telling their stories of the wireless. We have had loads of cracking guests and loads more to come over the series, but today's guest is a broadcasting god. It's the one, the only, Andrew Lloyd Ellians.
I think you're giving me far. I think you're giving me far too much of a build-up there. I don't warrant that, I'm afraid.
Yeah, how are you today?
Well, I'm good. I've been getting over COVID, actually, which unfortunately my wife and I caught last weekend. But luckily, as we've had 3 jabs, it's been fairly mild. It's just been like a mild flu or a bit of a cold. Thank God.
Yeah, how is the COVID over in your neck of the woods? Because you obviously live out.
I think it's pretty much as the same as it is worldwide. You know, hopefully it's on the run at the moment, and with enough people being vaccinated. On the whole, it's not quite as dangerous as it used to be, but it's still not nice and not worth. You want to try and avoid it if you can, obviously.
The story over here we have at the moment is about some Russian dictator trying to invade his neighbour's country.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not nice at all, actually, and it's very worrying because if he teams up with China against all the rest of the West, I think we're all going to be in for a difficult time. And
your country's not really very far from there.
No, we're not, and also it's got quite close links with Russia, so it's worrying without a doubt. Definitely worrying.
I don't watch the news because it's a waste of time, in my personal view.
Well, I've been involved with news broadcasts for quite a long period in my broadcasting career, so I've still got an interest in keeping abreast of what's going on.
Have you ever been on LBC before?
No, I haven't actually. Although I've got an old friend who's there, Steve Allen's there, but no, I've not been on LBC. I've done news programs. I did news programs for the BBC for quite some time, including a rolling news drive time show, which is interesting. Because you really are a talking head. You've got a set of headphones on with a producer talking to you in one ear and you're listening to your output in the other, and you're reading a script, and then they pop another interviewee in front of you. They hand you another script which they take out of your hand, and you've just got to get on and do it. And it's high adrenaline stuff, I'll tell you. Good fun.
What was the biggest news story when you were doing the news BBC that you ever covered before we go on to question 1?
I think the biggest story was when the Falklands War was on, and I was on air most days during that. That was, you suddenly realize that you're reading out something, particularly when the Belgrano sank. You're reading out something that's bad news that is going to upset some people, it's an important thing for a broadcaster to be involved with, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Brilliant. And now about 8 questions about your broadcast career, if that's okay.
Okay, fire away.
Okay, you ready to rumble in the jungle?
I'll do my very best for you, Ben.
Okay, let's go for it. Question 1. Where did you start your broadcast career?
I started with mobile discos when I was 14, and then went into hospital radio. And the reason I discovered radio is my mother decided that my brother and I were watching too much TV when we were studying for our exams. So she got rid of the TV. And of course, that's when I discovered radio. As opposed to watching the TV, I could listen to Luxembourg late at night. So I went to hospital radio, and then I started sending out tapes. There were only 19 commercial stations at that time in the country. I sent out tapes to all of them. They all sent me back letters that said basically, no, don't like you. You're no good. Go away. But I kept at it. I also knew that if I managed to get into UBN, that I would get the training there that I probably needed to get into commercial radio. And very luckily, I was one of the people that was finally, again, lots of my tapes that went to them they didn't like. But finally, I managed to get in. I got a job at UBN, and things rolled from there. Then went to BBC Radio Oxford for a while, then Mercia Sound at its launch, then back to the Beeb with various local stations, and then several other stations after that.
Who was the biggest person? Who was the biggest star you've interviewed then?
The biggest star? I don't know who the biggest was. I interviewed Phil Collins when his first solo album came out, which is Face Value. I've interviewed a lot of politicians, a lot of big star politicians as well. And Ian Gillan from Deep Purple, I interviewed him on several occasions, and he came in and covered my show for me. I used to take him round to the pub round the corner for a drink, much to the amusement of my fellow colleagues from the radio station, who would come in and find me sitting there having a drink with Ian Gillan in the local pub.
Yeah, brilliant. Brilliant. Question 2 now. We've done question 1, haven't we?
Yeah, we have.
Question 2. Who were your early inspirations when you were starting out in your broadcast career?
Biggest influence, and still is actually, although sadly he's not been with us for such a long time, is Roger Scott, who was at UBN and then at Capital Radio, and Graham Dean, who was also at Capital and at UBN. I think the two of them are the two people who I would like to think that I have tried to get somewhere even slightly close to their skills. We used to have 2 posters up on the wall in UBN, both of which I think Graham and Roger have managed to do. I try to do it. One was engage your brain before you open your mouth. And the other was, dear Lord, please help me know what I'm talking about before I open my big mouth.
Brilliant. Brilliant, brilliant. Yeah, and also now Graham Dean is on the Boom, which is a station for baby boomers. Yeah.
He's a great broadcaster, Graham.
Have you ever listened to Boom yet? Have you listened to Boom?
Yes, I listened to it. I listened to it from day one when it launched.
What do you think to the output and stuff?
I think it's great to have the choice of a station like Boom. I think Radio 2 missed out on a real chance there, because they alienated a large part of their audience. They've tried to, Radio 2's moved younger. Boom has filled that gap, and I think it's a great station. It's great to have the choice.
Yeah, would you ever consider, I'm joking here, doing a show on Boom Radio?
If David Lloyd asked me to do a show, I'd be delighted.
And what type of show would you do if you had the choice?
Do you know, as a professional broadcaster, you've got to do the show that, 1, your management tells you to do, and 2, that your audience is going to enjoy. So what I would want to do, does that matter actually? Probably not. I'll do, what is necessary.
Yeah, because Boom's a great little station.
It is, yeah, agreed.
It's showing that independent radio still exists.
Yeah, thank goodness for that, because so much of independent radio is gone. I mean, in my day, when I started out in the late 70s, early 80s, every station was on its own. There were no conglomerates, there were no groups, and it was true independent local radio. It was serving its local audience.
Yeah, brilliant, brilliant. Now, question 3 now. What is your favourite part about being a radio broadcaster?
You said, what's the favourite part about the job, didn't you, originally?
Yeah, but it's the same thing.
Is it? Because is it a job? Is it a job? It's a bit like the Money for Nothing song by Dire Straits. Maybe get a blister on your little finger, maybe get a blister on your thumb. Is it a job? When I first got my job at UBN, I have to tell you, I woke up one morning from sleep and I was laughing. I was so happy with what I was doing. So it's difficult. I mean, there are times when it does feel like a job. There's that is true. There are times it feels like a job, but the rest of the time, come on, there are much worse things in life you could be doing than sitting in a studio playing music or interviewing people.
Yeah. What? Yeah, and also, What was the best studio you've ever worked in?
Now, that's really tricky to answer, actually. Do you mean technically, or do you mean from the people who were there, or what we were doing, or?
Both.
Okay.
Technically.
Well, for what we were doing, I think it has to be Mercia Sound because, you know, our first reach, the first audience survey was astronomical. I mean, you know, the figures that we were getting were just unbelievable. You'd never achieve them now because there were just too many radio stations. So, and Mercia was very special. If you speak to anybody, excuse me, this is the COVID throat. If you speak to anybody who was part of that launch team, you'll find that everybody is bound together by having been there and by what we achieved. It was great. And in terms of the other station I would point out would be Jazz FM because, you know, that was one of the first narrowcast stations. It was a station that was there simply to provide a service to people who love jazz. And we were very passionate about it.
Brilliant. And yeah, do you know who the first breakfast show presenter on Jazz FM was?
It was Diana Luke.
The lovely Diana Luke, who's also on Boom.
Who's also on Boom, yeah. In fact, I stepped into the seat when Diana left.
Wow. Have you ever had the pleasure of meeting her?
I haven't actually, because our paths didn't actually cross physically. You know, she'd left, and I was parachuted in to sit in the seat.
Wow. Wow. And now we'll move on to question 4. What is your greatest achievement in your career so far?
I suppose getting away with it for nearly 43 years is my greatest achievement. I mean, you know, I don't know how I've got away with it for so long, but I'm still here and long may it continue.
Brilliant. Brilliant. That's it for part 1. Join me in a bit for 4 more questions in part 2, but for now, back to the studio.